My husband has challenged me to review 20 books before purchasing new ones. Now, he said this to me a few days ago, and I had actually already ordered a book that it's on its way. It is the book by Veda Austin. She does the research on the language of water and her crystallography. I have been sitting on that book for maybe 2 years, a year and a half. It's pretty expensive. I think it came to like 60 bucks Canadian. Don't tell my husband, including shipping. And well, it's on its way. I've also signed up for her workshop, which will be next Saturday. It's like a 7-hour workshop. Anyway, when I receive the book and go through it and listen to the workshop, I can come back with a review for you about that and to let you know if it's worth the purchase. I do know she wanted to stay off of Amazon, and she also has a lot of colored pictures, and that brings the price of the book way up. But today I will be talking to you about another book which is manufactured by Amazon, and it is Astral Experiences by Jason Quitt. And I love when books find me. About 10 years ago, I did a whole year where my rule was that I could not purchase a new book, but that I could welcome new books into my life that were given to me or that I found. I don't think I had any library books at the time, and I ended up being able to read quite a few books. Part of my reading journey and research journey is trying to slow myself down with the input and trying to balance input with output. I don't want to be someone who reads books too quickly and then doesn't even remember what they contain, and the impact that they have doesn't last long term. I remember reading the Celestine Prophecy. When did I read that? Maybe about 10 years ago. And it had such a profound effect on me, and it was so enlightening around trusting your intuition and kind of being guided by the divine path in life. Or so, I'm talking about this and I don't even fully remember now, but I remember it having such an impact and bringing such peace and clarity and like confidence to my life. And then asking my mom about it, and my mom saying, "Oh yeah, I read that book a long time ago." And I said, "Did you like it?" She said, "Yeah, I loved it." But she couldn't remember anything about its contents. And I felt at the time that she wasn't, incarnating what the teachings of the books were. And it felt frustrating to me. I feel like when we're young, when we're early 20s, a lot of things are frustrating to us. And the fact that she had read this book and it had a profound impact, but the impact didn't last, was frustrating to me. And so when I feel this frustration, I try to remember that towards other people and their actions and choices, I try to remember that it's a sign for me to make sure I incarnate that fully in my life before being frustrated, towards others about it. Anyway, that is why I am doing these reviews, to share about the books. This way I get to kind of remember and fully integrate the messaging or the content of the book, and I can share with you. Some of you may or may not read the books. It could be a great way to get a good summary of the book, or it can give you an idea as to whether or not it'll be worth it for you. So Astral Experiences by Jason Quitt. It's a short book. You can see it's not too big. Printed by Amazon, so decent quality. I am working on a book project at the moment, and I will probably go with Amazon unless I look into it more deeply and get fully turned off like Veda Austin. This is actually a signed copy, which is interesting because I found this one at my workplace. And for more information on my workplace, you may look below. But my boss is connected with Jason, and I guess he had given her a few copies of his book when it came out, and so this is a signed copy. So technically this is not one I had to purchase. I will be returning it to the clinic library, sharing library, and I will now be able to recommend it to the customers who come into our clinic. So in this book, and I think this is his most recent book, 2025. He has a number of other ones that he has published as well, which are in here. So the other ones are Gates of the Anunnaki, Egyptian Postures of Power, and I believe there's 2 others as well. And well, if you haven't guessed already, these are all on my list of next books to read because I really liked this one. For me, it wasn't like a full kind of life-changing book, but it was very confirming. And I liked his approach as to how he wrote. So he's telling his story of his spiritual experiences, in kind of at nighttime in the dream world, from his childhood, from his early 20s, and then exploring the experiences and how he understood them and came to deepen them over time. So I think he's now in his mid 40s, and so he's writing about experiences in his 20s and in childhood. And it's interesting to read his work because I feel like he's still coming into a process of being comfortable, being visible with these experiences that have happened to him and with how deep and consciously he has worked with it. So he comes from a place, it's almost like a shyness or something, and also great humility of not necessarily being chauvinistic, but this sense of duty of needing to share these experiences with others, so that it might help them. And I think in his life, he hasn't really been surrounded by friends and family who experience things similar to this and who might understand. And I think it's been a big work of his to slowly open up and share that side of him with the world. And I think he's felt a deep calling to do this, but it's been a slow progression. And I can relate to that very deeply because I've kind of had a similar experience. Although for me personally, I haven't had these direct paranormal experiences myself. For me, I've always had a fascination with it and a desire to understand and come closer to it. And that's kind of why I do my QHHT work, because it helps me understand those realms of life. And in Dolores Cannon's work, in her books, she has a number of clients, people who come to her who have had these kind of experiences. So what are these experiences that he talks about? So he talks about feeling a spirits kind of around his bed at night and as a child. So like when the door of his closet was a little bit open and he was trying to sleep at night, he would get really scared and had to have that door closed in order to sleep comfortably because he felt like there were beings or something there. There were also so I guess in the home they were living him and his where his brother and his family was, his brother also had some paranormal experiences. They were kind of happening in the house. So he talks a little bit about that. And then he talks about sleep paralysis that started happening in his 20s because some of the paranormal stuff kind of settled down. Some of these spirit encounters settled down, and then they started revving back up in his early 20s. One interesting thing from his childhood was that he had a dream. So he was maybe 8 or 9 years old from what I understand, and went to school, this new school, and met this new boy, this friend, and they became friends. And he had a dream one night that he and his friends had to, they were forced to fight each other in a duel and to fight until death. And if I remember correctly, they had agreed that Jason's character would win and would be the one to live. Like they had kind of made this pact. And so they put up a fight, they put up a show for the king, and then in the end, Jason's character killed this character swiftly. And of course, for an 8 or 9-year-old to have that realization that was, a really big thing for him. And so he went to school the next day and he told his friend about this. He said, "Hey, buddy, do you remember, like, we were best friends? We've known each other before and I killed you and we're back again." And he was all excited. And his friend kind of looked at him like, "Are you crazy? What are you talking about?" And that was the moment, I think around 8, 9, 10, where he realized that not everyone else was having these kind of experiences or visions or intuitions, and that he should tone it down and not expose that part of himself to the world. So it was like a child protection mechanism. But what's interesting is that friend didn't shun him or close him off, after sharing this. They ended up being best friends, and I think still are best friends from that point on. So clearly there was something to the story that he saw, but for his friend, it wasn't an important piece or something relevant or useful for him to know about. But maybe it could explain the bond that they had. And I have to share that I have a similar experience with a best friend from childhood where I saw myself in a past life where she was my wife. I was a man and she was my wife. And we had a very, healthy, beautiful, loving relationship where I was kind of more of a protector role and she was like watching over me because I was doing some kind of dangerous work for our community. And if you want to know more about that lifetime, let me know and encourage me to write an article kind of sharing that story because it's a fun story. And so then I told her about it and she knows about me and the things I'm into. She's not into them at all. Like she doesn't need to explore spirituality or these kind of esoteric things in her life, but we're still very good, deep friends who, no matter how much time goes between seeing each other or talking, we can reconnect very easily. She has deep understanding and compassion and love for me, even though our lives are very, very different and we make very different choices. And so it was interesting. I actually visited her recently, and it was the second or third time we had seen each other since I had accessed this past life story. And I could feel that kind of tenderness between us, as friends, of this like deep care for me and my well-being. That's really, really nice to have from someone, in your life. So that's one story that he shared. So he comes to this sleep paralysis aspect of his 20s. And now I've heard about this from other people. I haven't personally experienced it in my life. I had a client last year for QHHT who came to me because of sleep paralysis and because of these nightmares and feeling spirits around her, feeling like a weight on her chest, and all of these things Jason explores in this book. So I did pass the book on to her. He also has done quite a few podcast appearances and different YouTube things. I'm kind of diving into that now. And the one podcast episode he does with, I think it's called Acid for Squares, basically summarizes the whole book. So if you feel like you don't want to read the whole book, you don't have time to sit down and read, you can just check out the podcast and get pretty much the whole gist of it from him in the podcast. So regarding the sleep paralysis stuff, he talks about his experience starting with waking up and being fully paralyzed and feeling a presence around him at night. And then over time, getting really mad and frustrated. Like at first he was terrified, absolutely terrified. And then because it was happening so often, the fear kind of went away and it turned into anger and frustration. Like, why is this happening? This is so frustrating. And he got such a big surge of emotion at one point, such anger that it kind of burst him out of his body. And he was seeing it from up top and seeing his body down below. And he goes on to share how this dark presence that he used to be afraid of ended up being kind of like a guide Not someone who spoke to him, verbally or like in clear words, but would take him on these journeys to go visit different places. And he speaks to still having this frustration towards this guide, but eventually surrendering to the process and allowing himself to go on these journeys. And eventually coming to a state of love and acceptance and integration. And I don't know if it was regarding that spirit particularly, but there were he speaks of other kind of spiritual entities kind of coming around him, and some of them being shadow versions of himself that need to be seen and loved and integrated. And he speaks to seeing other spirits that are like shadow pieces that need to be integrated from people he knows and loves in his community, in his life, and helping those parts integrate while he's in the astral state. And so that's an interesting experience he talks about. And another one is this idea of parasitic thought forms, because eventually he was able to kind of astrally travel. When he first was leaving his body, he was like afraid to be gone too long or to not be able to integrate back into his body. And so he would not, go very far and try to pop back in as quickly as possible. And over time, he was playing with it because it kept happening to him. And he would go, walk around his house, or not walk around, but it's like he describes it as kind of an essence of consciousness, kind of like just this bubble of energy, but without, clear boundaries. Not having any eyes that see, but just like seeing all the way around. And so this astral part of himself would explore the home, or would go and sit up on the roof, and eventually would kind of move around a little bit more. And while he was in this state, he was able to see these astral parasitic thought forms, or like bad, dark thought forms that exist as beings in the astral world that are kind of created by humans, and then can latch on to people and need to be, either removed or kind of melted away with love, is I guess a way that I would describe it. And for me, I'm having some experiences with people in my life where I feel like they could have these parasitic thought forms attached to them that are kind of draining them. And I've had people come to me in QHHT talking in this kind of language, and I never gave it too much strength. It's never been something that really frightens me or scares me, or that I've been worried about too much. Because I felt like these people had this like paranoia around these like parasitic dark entities. And now I've kind of come to a place where I can understand how they're real, quote unquote, and how they can be described as beings that are being parasitic, and learning what we can do to our energy fields, to our own beings, so that those parasitic thought forms can't take hold. And it's interesting because at work, I'm helping people kind of remove parasites, in a sense, using a frequency machine. And I'm hoping to share with them this sense of not having paranoia around this, a sense of trusting our bodies, and just working towards the highest state of vitality that we can hold in this present moment of time, and trusting that will keep certain parasitic, either they're real parasites in the physical body or energetic parasites, kind of at bay and unable to latch on and feed from us. He talks about a trip to Peru and working with ayahuasca, and that ayahuasca made him very sensitive to needing to sensitive to the foods that he was taking. So for example, after his ayahuasca ceremony, I think he had coffee or he smoked a joint with some friends, and he could feel the effects even more strongly in his body. And it was a message to kind of clear that out from his life and no longer use those substances. So that was interesting. He talks about breaking his back and healing from that. And he does mention the product that we use at our work, the Sequex mat. And if you want more information about that, please contact me directly. And healing from a broken back. I believe I didn't actually maybe read this last chapter. I got so excited and moved on a little bit, but it looks like he's talking about sleep paralysis and abduction phenomenon and UFOs. You know, once you start getting into these worlds, because at one point he was traveling in his astral body and he started seeing like more UFO type creatures and beings out and about with people. And what I think it is kind of like a Men in Black situation where in that state of consciousness, he could see the beings for who they truly were. And I believe they're UFOs, not UFOs. UFOs is like the flying object, but ETs definitely living amongst us. Some are, souls that are incarnated in human bodies, and others are, I don't know, maybe ETs who have some kind of illusionary trick that they can play on us. I think that's definitely possible. It doesn't scare me. And that's because of Dolores Cannon's work that, I mean, maybe I'm being naive, but in her books, she says that we're pretty protected right now. The Earth is protected by a galactic consortium, and they're not allowing any real evil ETs to come in. Most of the ET of influence now is studying humans in order to like better help us. And just helping the evolution and consciousness and safety of the Earth so that humans don't self-destruct. So that's kind of why I'm not so afraid. I mean, personally, at the moment, World War III is not really something that I'm afraid of at the moment. I feel there's so much goodness in the world. So this is the first review of 20 that I have to do before I can order all of his books. And what else? I'm reading Michael Weiss right now. I'm kind of getting into some of his books, which are fun. And what else is on my list? Juliette de Barclay-Levy was an herbalist, and I think her books are really fascinating. I have one of hers by on cats and dogs herbalism, and it's great. It's fantastic. It's super old, so I love hearing about her perspective on things, and maybe that'll be a good book to review for you guys. I also have this pile here, and so if you happen to watch and you want me to get to one of these book reviews sooner rather than later, let me know which one you'd like to see. Or if you have book recommendations for me, please let me know. So this is the pile of books that are next to be reviewed. This shamanism book by Roger Walsh, The Way of the Rose by Clark Strand and Perdita Finn. This was kind of a life-changing book for me. The Sophia Code, many different feels about this book. Generally positive, but a few concerns as well. Ode to Minoa and the sequel stories they told me. This cover I don't love at all. I think they could have done a much better job. Like, this one is great, but a great book nonetheless. Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Not sure if I've done this one already on YouTube, but life-changing book for many. And this one, Behaving as if the God in all life mattered. This was a nice little book too. So thank you for listening, and I wish you a beautiful day.